What if the single most important factor determining who you are, how you think, and what you intensely feel was already decided before you took your very first breath? We often comfort ourselves with the romantic belief that we are entirely the masters of our own destiny, but this story reveals a captivating and somewhat provocative truth. The intricate blueprint of your mind was fundamentally wired long before you ever had a say in the matter. For countless generations, humanity has held on to a deeply comforting and pervasive narrative. We firmly believed that a person's character, their intellectual capacity, and their unique quirks were predominantly the result of their environment and their own sheer effort. We built our vast societies and ambitious educational systems on the profound hope that nurture could seamlessly mold anyone into anything. However, in his groundbreaking and thought provoking exploration, Innate, How the Wiring of Our Brains Shapes Who We Are, renowned neuroscientist and geneticist Kevin J. Mitchell boldly challenges this deeply entrenched belief. He invites us on a fascinating, scientifically rigorous journey into the biological roots of our individuality, arguing compellingly that our personal traits are far more innate than we might ever have dared to imagine. The compelling narrative of this remarkable book rests on two foundational scientific pillars. The first pillar takes us back to the very origins of our physical and mental existence. Mitchell meticulously traces how the genetic differences we inherit from our parents lay down the foundational architectural plans for our brains. Yet, he is incredibly careful to steer us far away from the gloomy, restrictive trap of pure genetic determinism. Our DNA is not an immutable, rigid script that dictates our every single move. Instead, the incredible journey from our genetic code to our actual living, breathing selves is fraught with unpredictable developmental noise. Imagine the breathtaking, beautiful chaos within a developing embryo. Billions of neurons are constantly being born, migrating across vast cellular landscapes and randomly forging trillions of synaptic connections. This process is essentially a magnificent, unrepeatable storm of molecular chance. It is precisely because of these random developmental variations that even identical twins, who share the exact same genetic blueprint, emerge into the world with entirely distinct personalities, brain structures, and varied life trajectories. One might grow up to be a thrill-seeking adventurer, while the other finds deep solace in quiet contemplation, all because of the microscopic, unpredictable rolls of the dice during their earliest developmental stages. The second pillar of Mitchell's exploration dives deep into the tangible psychological consequences of these physical differences. Through a rich tapestry of scientific evidence and vivid, relatable examples, he demonstrates how traits we almost always attribute to upbringing, such as our general intelligence, our baseline of empathy, our sexual orientation, and even our underlying susceptibility to mental health challenges, are deeply anchored in the physical wiring of our nervous system. Some individuals are simply born with an amygdala that is inherently more sensitive to perceived threats, making them naturally more cautious or prone to anxiety. Others possess a neurological landscape brimming with dopamine receptors that relentlessly drive them to seek out novel and exhilarating experiences. These innate biological differences serve as the permanent lens through which we perceive the world. They dictate our baseline reactions to stress, our capacity for joy, and the fundamental ways in which we interact with the people around us every single day. This striking revelation naturally leads us to a profound philosophical crossroads. Does this mean our futures are entirely predetermined by the biological hardware we were handed at birth? The author vehemently argues against such a bleak and deterministic conclusion. While our genes and our innate brain wiring undoubtedly set our starting points and establish our natural predispositions, they do not carve our ultimate destinies in stone. We are wonderfully dynamic creatures. We take our innate tendencies and constantly adapt them within the unique environments we inhabit, growing, learning, and evolving through our distinct life experiences. Ultimately, the most powerful message radiating from Innate is not one of biological resignation, but rather a profound and urgent call for radical empathy and acceptance. The breathtaking diversity of human personalities is not a simple spectrum of right and wrong, or superior and inferior. It is a brilliant, necessary evolutionary strategy that has allowed our species to adapt and thrive in a wildly unpredictable world. When we encounter someone whose worldview bafflingly clashes with our own, or whose emotional responses seem entirely alien to us, understanding that their brain might simply be wired differently transforms our judgment into genuine curiosity. It fosters a much deeper tolerance and a more profound appreciation for the rich, complex tapestry of human existence. This book serves as a warm, scientifically grounded guide that empowers us to fully understand the beautiful constraints and the limitless possibilities of our own nature, allowing us to live more freely and happily as our authentic selves. Now, let us delve much deeper into this captivating world of neuroscience and genetics and carefully analyze the hidden meanings, scientific nuances, and the profound questions this remarkable work poses for our everyday lives.
So, who are you? I mean, really? For what feels like forever, we've been stuck on this one question. Are you a product of your DNA or your environment? You know, nature versus nurture. But what if I told you that whole debate is missing something? A huge, hidden third factor that's been shaping you from the very beginning. Well, today, we're diving into the incredible work of neurogeneticist Kevin J. Mitchell to uncover the surprising science of what makes us, well, us.
I mean, this is the classic question, right? It's probably one of the oldest debates in human history. It's destiny versus experience. Were you just born this way? Or all your talents, your quirks, your personality, was all that pre-written in your genes before you even took your first breath? Or are you a blank slate, completely shaped by your childhood, your friends, your choices?
So you've got these two big camps. On one side, you have nature. That's the idea that our DNA is basically a detailed blueprint for who we are. It's that whole "it's in your blood" argument. And then on the other side, you've got nurture. This is the famous blank slate theory, the idea that our environment, our upbringing, writes the entire story of who we become. But here's the thing, this whole two-sided fight, it's missing a massive piece of the puzzle.
All right, to find that missing piece, we've got to start by busting a really common myth about our DNA.
Okay, first things first, let's just get this out of the way. That whole blank slate idea, Professor Kevin Mitchell puts it pretty bluntly. He says it's dead. And honestly, the science completely backs him up. We now know without a doubt that we come into this world with certain tendencies, certain predispositions. I mean, if you've ever known siblings, you know this is true, right? Kids have their own unique personalities right out of the gate.
Okay, so the blank slate is out. Nurture isn't the whole story. But, and this is a really big but, that does not mean the other extreme is true. Your DNA isn't some perfect, all-powerful blueprint that dictates every single tiny detail about you.
You know how we always hear people talking about the gene for this or the gene for that? Well, it turns out it's just not that simple. There is no single gene for intelligence. There's no one gene that makes you shy or outgoing or anything complex, really. A much better way to think about it is this. Your genes aren't a blueprint, they're more like a recipe. The recipe gives you the ingredients and the basic instructions, but it doesn't control every single thing that happens. You know, how you mix the batter, the exact temperature of the oven, all those little things introduce tiny variations.
And that variability, that bit of randomness in the recipe, well, that leads us directly to that surprising third factor I mentioned. This is what's called the lottery of development.
So the big idea here is something called developmental noise. What is that? Just think of it like random static. You know, the unavoidable little glitches and variations that happen when a super complex thing like a brain is being built. Even if you have the exact same genetic instructions, all the millions of little steps involved in wiring up a brain, they're never going to happen the exact same way twice. That variability, that's developmental noise.
And here's the part that is just wild. Because of this developmental noise, no two brains are ever wired exactly alike. I mean, think about that. Not even identical twins who share 100% of their DNA. This is a huge reason why one twin might be super outgoing and the other is more reserved. They start with the exact same genetic recipe, sure, but that baking process, as the brain develops, introduces all these unique, one-of-a-kind variations.
So let's just walk through how this happens. Step 1. Your genes give the basic recipe for building brain cells, or neurons. Step 2. Billions of these neurons start reaching out, trying to form trillions of connections. Step 3. This is where the randomness comes in. The whole wiring process isn't perfectly neat and tidy. It's what scientists call probabilistic, which is just a fancy way of saying it's based on chance. And what's the final result? A brain that is completely 100% unique to you. before you're even born.
Okay, so we've got our genetic recipe, and we've got this random developmental noise. So where does our environment, nurture, fit into all this?
Well, this is where our understanding has really changed. Your life experiences, your upbringing, your education, everything that happens to you, they are not writing on a blank slate. Not at all. Instead, they're working with the unique brain you already have, the one built by your genes and all that developmental noise. Think of it this way. Nurture is like a sculptor, but it doesn't start with a formless lump of clay. It gets a block of marble that already has its own unique veins and patterns, and its job is to shape and refine what's already there.
And this brings us to a really powerful idea called biological agency. Basically, it's the capacity for a living thing, all the way from a tiny bacterium up to us, to act on its own behalf. That randomness we've been talking about, it isn't a flaw in the system, it's a feature. It's a built-in source of unpredictability that actually allows us to make spontaneous choices and deal with a world that's always throwing new stuff at us.
And you do this all the time without even thinking about it. Ever been stuck choosing between two restaurants that sound equally good and you just pick one? Or you decide to take a totally new route home from work just because? That's it. That's you harnessing that internal noise. It's the spark for creativity, for exploring, for just trying something new. It's what allows you to be an active player in your own life, not just someone reacting to things.
So all of this, it all builds up to one final, really empowering idea, that in a very real way, we are the authors of ourselves.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. Your genes and that random lottery of your brain's development, they don't write your destiny in stone, not even close. What they do is they draw you a map of possibilities. They create your unique starting point with its own hills and valleys, its own strengths and challenges. But you're the one holding the map. You're the one who gets to choose which path you take.
This quote just says it all perfectly. We are a being that is made, not determined. I mean, think about that. We're not just born a certain way, and we're not just products of our environment. We are constantly in the process of being made by how our biology, our experiences, and, this is the key, our own actions all mixed together. We are actively involved in creating who we are.
So you see, that old question, nature or nurture, it was never the right question to begin with. It's not just about what you were born with or what happened to you. The real question, the one this science points us to, is so much more interesting and so much more empowering. It's this. Given the completely unique map that you and only you have been handed, who are you choosing to become?